So today I wanted to talk about the Speak No Evil remake and why it doesn't work. Now I've already reviewed the film and I really didn't even anticipate making this video, but I've seen so many reviews, I've seen the rhetoric about the new film, how it differs, why it works, why it doesn't. I wanted to rant a little bit about why I think the movie just doesn't work and why I think it's a little bit problematic when it comes to movies going forward. So the remake of Speak No Evil, it was okay. I had a good enough time with it. And I keep seeing a lot of people saying they liked it because it was not the original. It was not as offensive. It was not as frustrating. They liked how there was some payoff. And at the time of reviewing it, I questioned, was this a stylistic choice for American audiences, or was it to pander to the fact that nowadays moviegoers, American audiences in particular, do not like to be offended, they do not like to be uncomfortable, which quite frankly felt a little bit ironic given what the original was supposed to be talking about, so let's get into it. So in both of these films, they're basically the exact same. You have these two families hanging out in Europe, and one of these families is basically taking advantage of another family, constantly making them feel uncomfortable. The entire purpose of the original, I'm sure it's not lost on many people, is to make you feel uncomfortable, make you feel frustrated for the fact that these people do not speak up, and that sometimes it's okay to be uncomfortable and to acknowledge that and to act on it. The same way a lot of people are talking about how they didn't like the original because it made them feel uncomfortable, I can't help but point out the irony again of that is the exact point of what it wants you to feel, and you have audiences willfully running from it. Just seems completely self-defeating. And I know there will be some blowback about how you just don't get it. Some people don't want movies to be that deep, that frustrating. Some people are there for entertainment. So some people will say, I liked it a lot more. I liked the ending. You know, movies aren't that deep, man. Like, we just want to have fun. We don't want to be left with a big social commentary. Again, that's kind of defeating the point of the movie, because in the remake, there's numerous times it has the exact same setup as the original, where they could try to capitalize on that, make it more accessible to American audiences. And then they just kind of fumble the bag because they don't want to commit to it. So for example, you have a scene in the remake where James McAvoy's character offers to take the daughter of the new couple on a ride on a motorcycle. And this couple is just okay with this. He says he'll be safe. He just starts driving off on the motorcycle. And you know, based on the way the new movie ends, you don't really care. The family gets their comeuppance, there's nothing wrong. Well, the message of that is that sometimes it's okay to just sit around and wait. You don't always get a second chance in the real world. I mean, in actuality, he could have just drove off with the kid and he could have child trafficked her. Not speaking up at every single exact time where you're uncomfortable can lead to dire consequences. That's the point of the original. It's not some exponential thing where, you know, as it keeps going, you'll eventually reach that point. It's no, you can immediately address when you're in an uncomfortable situation, you get the fuck out of it. In this new one, you know, the fact that they get their comeuppance at the end of the film after numerous opportunities to leave kind of leaves you with that message that, you know, there will always be another time when sometimes there's not. That one time is all it takes for something catastrophic to happen. I think that's something this new movie completely misses the mark on, and the message that a lot of audience members, quite frankly, overlooked and or don't care about. But again, maybe that's just the way people consume art now. It just completely contradicts what the entire point of the film is, regardless of the ending. Now, the original Speak No Evil is more concerned with culture than the remake because it's talking about Danish culture in particular and how polite they are, but there is a loose comparison I need to make. It's a comedic bit by the late great Patrice O'Neal, God rest his soul. He's a black man talking about racism and how white people specifically will put themselves in incredibly dangerous scenarios because they don't want to be perceived as racist.
White guys are so afraid to be a racist. I'm telling you, you see a few black guys walking towards you in an area you don't belong in, run.
He finds it funny as a black guy, and I can't help but draw comparisons to this entire movie.
So they gotta wait to get beat up first before they can even think about running. My advice, run, get home, feel guilty, but be alive. Alive and guilty is a good thing. Because if I see 5 bald white dudes walking towards me, I ain't gonna wonder if they got cancer.
It's completely saying the original. There's sometimes you have to draw a line, no matter how uncomfortable you make others feel, no matter how you may be perceived, where your gut instinct wins over and you have to say, fuck it, and just get out of there. Get out of Dodge. You don't care how it's perceived. You need to act in your own best interest. That original movie sells that point home. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Where people are saying they don't want to be uncomfortable because of the original's ending. They don't want to deal with such deep subject matter. They don't want to be frustrated. That's the point. And I'm not saying you have to enjoy it, but that's the only point you can get out of this subject matter. When you watch the remake, it's the exact same movie. They just have no balls and they don't go for it because they're afraid to offend American audiences, make them think for themselves without coming out directly and telling you 100 times about speaking up and being honest. Again, all the subtleties lost. just completely afraid to stick that point home. And I completely understand why they did it, because especially compared to foreign films and TV shows, American audiences love a good comeback story. They love the American superhero. That's why we love Marvel movies. That's why we love when the good guys get the win at the end every time. And Die Hard, all these things where you have a character you can root for, where that's just not the reality of life. Sometimes the good guy does not win, and that is the point of the original Speak No Evil. Again, you don't have to love it, just ranting a little bit here, but something I definitely had in the back of my mind when I was debating, was this a stylistic choice by Blumhouse to make this ending different? Or did they realize that that film would just never be accepted in America because people are so afraid of being uncomfortable, so afraid of having hard conversations, that they would have just said, this movie is terrible, there's no point to the end of it, it made me feel so bad, which again was the point of the movie. And then lastly, I need to bring up another review I did, which is sort of segues back to Speak No Evil. So I did a review on this movie called Blink Twice, and it was dog shit. I hated it. A lot of ruthless and just angry comments at me in that, calling me racist, a predator, all of this stuff for my opinions on it, because I didn't like the movie. Stand by, I think it's terrible. And the reason I think it's terrible is, again, it relates back to Speak No Evil and being uncomfortable. So in that movie, there's a lot of sexual violence. There's a lot of commentary about abusing power. They even tell you so much in a trigger warning, and that was actually my main gripe with that film. You really know exactly what it's going to be. There's no mystery to it. There's no shock to it, because it tells you exactly what the movie's about. It's exploring SA and it's exploring abuse of power. So you know exactly what you're getting on screen, and it's already been watered down. Now, I'm not going to sit here and argue that we don't need to be warned of these things, that there shouldn't be ratings. That's why ratings exist. But to go so direct with the trigger warning in a movie, in art of any kind, music, I'm noticing this trend of things getting watered down. The entire point of that movie was to shock you. There is no other point besides to start a commentary about how bad this is, to speak up. That's the point. Shock value alone. So when you remove the shock value, there's absolutely no purpose to this art. There's no intrigue to the mystery. There's no payoff. I was seeing comments about this saying how effective it was, how the ending of the movie was so powerful. There's no power to it. The shock was eliminated. If there was actually shock to it and then we got an ending, it would have mattered. But the fact that you already watered down the shock means I just don't care about the message, because the message has no purpose. It becomes insensitive. It becomes offensive to actual survivors. There's just no point to the film. If you're going to make a film like that, like Hostel, Eden Lake, Speak No Evil, if your entire point of exploitation to serve a message, then I'm there for it. It's a shock film. It's an exploitation film. You're trying to drive a point home. I can get on board. Even if I don't like it, I understand what you're going for. But if you just remove that because you're afraid to offend, or you're afraid to shock viewers and make them uncomfortable, then there's no point in making the movie to begin with. At least that's my stance on it. Not trying to seem elitist or anything in my view on these movies, whether or not you like Blink Twice, the remake of Speak No Evil. I like Speak No Evil's remake a good enough bit. I said it was okay if you had nothing else to do. Again, just worrisome at a time where in everything we do, politics, religion, any conversation we have, if you get uncomfortable, you just throw names, you check out, you have no interest in art, media, people just don't want to engage with things that make them uncomfortable. I just couldn't help but notice and point out again for the final time. I really wonder if this movie is a sign of things to come, if it's a stylistic choice, or if we're just doing this because we've just become so watered down as a society we can't even have hard conversations anymore. So what do you guys think though? Have you guys seen either of these movies? Do you agree with me, the trend of things being watered down in foreign films compared to American films? Do you notice people tiptoeing on eggshells, afraid to offend, afraid to get uncomfortable with art, media, anything that requires them to think a little bit? Or are you in the complete opposite? Do you think Blink Twice was good? Are you somebody who really doesn't care, just there for a good time? Let me know all of it down below. Again, I'm just kind of ranting based on a lot of comment sections, a lot of reviews I've checked out online, some of the responses I've gotten that I didn't really relate to, so it kind of came off confrontational in my comment section, but things that people are saying that I completely didn't agree with, so I just wanted to point out. Anyways, let me know all down below. As always, if you haven't subscribed, feel free to join me. I do it all, new releases, movie reviews, rants like this. Basically anything I want to talk about movies, I do it on this channel, so join me down below. That's all I got in this video. You guys have a good night. Peace.